for food. It lives in the country.
Yeah.
So they've lost their connection to each other.
Right.
It's almost like they have amnesia.
Okay.
So they don't even recognize each other.
Right.
They can criticize each other from a distance,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it's the same as saying, I want to reconnect with nature. I've listened to people just recently tell me, because they moved from the city to the country, and they're like, man, I'm really loving nature, and I feel more connected. And they want to really connect with nature. And their perspective from living in the city most of their life to living all of a sudden living in the country, it's like they're having a spiritual experience, because imagine all of your life you've been surrounded by cement, and all of a sudden
It'll be some life.
over here you're in the garden, and you hear
Yeah.
these, like you and I hearing these birds singing and these crickets. It changes your whole perspective. Your frequency is literally reconnecting with what you were originally born to be with. You know what I mean? So now your perspective changes. The problem is, if you run into somebody who's highly political, he wants to exploit your newborn compassion and say, oh, the reason why you're having all this trouble is because of those politicians, those ones on the right or the ones on the left, whatever it is. And then you become again programmed and disconnected to each other in a different way politically.
Yeah.
Now you're the vegetarian and I'm the meat eater, so to speak, and now we're fighting each other over that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or legislation, the legislation of, let's say, I hate fossil fuel all of a sudden. I lived in the city all about that. Now I'm in the country, and I just met this guy who's running for office, and he's saying the problem is fossil fuel, right? So now I'm like this newborn baby. I'm in the country. I met this guy. He's really great. He's telling me about how terrible fossil fuel is, and I lived in the city all my life, and I agree with him because I see all the pollution in the city. So now I hate the city. I hate gas. I hate cars, based on who I met. So now I'm receiving a new programming, and that programming says, in order for me to love nature correctly, I must hate fossil fuel. You see what happens?
Yeah.
And so then, what does that do? It puts us right in the hands of the politicians who want to be the heroes, not the real heroes. They want to be the make-believe heroes. They want to make their own selves be heroes. We're going to pass a law. We're going to stop that thing.
I mean, that's what we asked for, the crowd. I guess, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't understand that's what they're looking for. We only want them to help us, and that's what makes them a hero.
Yeah, but they exploit that.
Okay.
See, there's a difference between, a hero is not an exploiter. Gandhi was not exploiting his people. Buddha was not exploiting his people. He was just saying, self-knowledge, know thyself, because in order to be a better person, to have a relationship with, you have to know yourself. So we're talking about developing relationships, not breaking relationships, not having relationships based on hate. Because they're telling you that love is hate. See what I'm saying? They're telling you don't see it, because you're being programmed to believe that in order to love, you must hate them. I remember sitting inside of a car with a bunch of rednecks in Florida, in this little town called Dade City, and I had a little part-time job, and I was doing washing cars at CarMax. We'd wash a bunch of cars and get paid at the end of the day cash. And these guys were kind of talking about race, and I said to these, being the only non-white guy in the car, that it's okay for you to love your own brother, guys. It's okay for you to love your own people. That's natural, I expect for a father of any race to love his son or his daughter, but he's not going to say, "I love you because you're white." I love you because you're my son. Make sense?
Makes sense.
So get up in the morning and say, "Son, I love you because you're white," and the brown person says,
I mean,
"Son,
some people
I love
might
you."
say that though.
Yeah, I mean, but that's, I think that's rare.
It's right.
Yeah.
I understand.
Most human beings don't speak to their kids that way.
Yeah.
I don't care what.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I said to them, that it's okay to love yourself without hating somebody who's different. And this is a true story.
That's the way.
Almost everybody in that, there was about at least 7, 8 guys. Almost every person in that car was in tears. They said they never heard anybody say that before in their life.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So we became the best of friends, and all the programming that they had been programmed by certain adults in their lives, because I found out certain things as
yeah,
we,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. That's what I'm saying.
because again, the programming gets
yeah,
passed down from generation to generation.
yeah.
There has
Programming.
to be somebody who breaks the curse.
So is there a good reason to be programmed? You can program yourself to be happy. You can self-program to be happy, or so. Is there a good programming?
I would say that being on time is a good programming.
Being on
Like
time.
if you have a
yeah.
job and
Yeah.
you show up on time,
Show up on time.
being a hard worker, you know what I mean?
You can program yourself
To be diligent, because
Yeah.
if you want to improve your life, you know what I mean? You want to improve your economic power, you know, it could be just for your own individual self. If you're a single man or a woman, you want to improve your life, show up on time for work. If you're late every day, you're gonna lose your job.
Yeah.
So
That's reality.
So that you can program yourself to be diligent, to be hardworking, you know, to study hard, to get to be the best person you could be with other people, to learn as much as you can about whatever it is that you want to aspire to become. Like you do your environmental business. I would say the best thing you could do is study. Learn as much as you can about plastics.
Yourself. So program myself into that field.
Yeah.
To be better at it, and that's
program yourself without isolating yourself.
Okay.
So you remain open.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
That's what a hero does.
Yeah.
Come on, I'm a hero, man.
because for example, you know, you're doing recycling plastic. That doesn't mean you hate people who don't recycle.
Right.
Right?
No, not at all.
Right, because that would be detrimental to your relationship with them. Because if you want to influence them, you can't hate the people who you want to influence in a positive way about recycling.
Yeah.
If you say, "Oh, you don't recycle," oh, F you.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I always, speaking of that, I always say if people were educated and conscious about you know, the environment enough, I would be out of job. I would not have anything to do.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And when I say people, I'm not talking about just the consumers.
Yeah.
It's the is, you know, the plastic producers too, and business leaders and influencers, and the industries, in the packaging industry. Okay. So yeah, so I have to program myself by studying, by learning, constantly learning. You know, I listen to a lot of audios. I go to seminars about that and about what I do, and I talk to people like you often and every time. So
you're an environmental hero.
That's right.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I'm still a hero, even though I program myself to my own selfish benefit.
Yes.
In a way. So that makes doctors a hero. But where I'm bringing you is, you mentioned like, we look for fake heroes, like lawmakers, to pass laws for us, to solve our own problems, or to do things that lazy things, as you call them. Is it all politicians, or can the president be a hero in your eyes?
I mean, it's not. The greatest hero is the truth. The greatest hero is the truth.
That's tweetable. That's tweetable. But you go. You can go.
You know, because if there's one thing that people want to hear, is the truth. And
Okay.
and because of that, you know, it produces a certain perspective in their consciousness. It changes their consciousness. When you hear truth, that's why I say, whatever it is whatever it is that you're doing in your life, don't cut the don't cut off, don't cut yourself off, don't isolate yourself from the rest of the views. Listen to all views, because you could be doing your work, right, for a long time, and then one day discover that what you were doing was actually detrimental, you know what I mean, to the environment, as opposed to what you thought you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So you always have to look, because everything changes, man. Look, Model T Ford, look at that car that he designed. You had to crank.
Yeah.
Look what we have now. The cars that do almost 200 miles.
Yeah, you don't
per
even
hour.
have to do anything now. As long as you should sit inside of the car, it starts itself.
But why? But why did it change? Because the reason why it advanced and progressed was because people were open to new information.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, the church said that that the sun revolved around the earth. You know what I mean? And it turns out the other way around. So, in other words, be open to new information and new knowledge that's going to make your world a better place to live.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned a lot of names. Those are old names, I would say. They still,
Relevant.
they're
Still
still
relevant.
relevant,
Yeah.
and their legacy is still doing goods for the world. But is there any recent names?
You see, this is
Sure.
the thing. This is the thing that I've been telling young people for a long time. I would sit down with young people, and they would start quoting to me, Buddha or Jesus or
Mm-hmm.
Muhammad or whatever, because
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with all kinds of kids from all different backgrounds,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say that's good. I'm glad that you know what Buddha said. I'm glad that you know that Jesus said. I'm glad that you know what Muhammad said. I'm glad you know what Mandela said. Whatever. But what are you saying? What do you see? That's my challenge. My challenge is, you have to develop your own understanding based on your own senses. You have senses. You don't rely on the senses of another human being who lived 2,000 years ago. He had his period and moment in history where he had to act. What are you doing? Don't sit back and say, "Oh, Jesus said this." What are you doing? Don't sit back and say, "Buddha said that." What are you doing?
Yeah,
Because they
that's
were
the
just
next
as
question.
human. They were just as human as you were. If you think that they were not human, then you're believing fairy tales. They were
Right.
just as human as you were, and they
Yeah.
had the same
I
challenges
like
as you
that.
did.
I like what you're saying there.
You know,
Yeah.
so the question is, are you going to meet the challenge? Because they met their space of challenge,
Yeah.
even unto death,
Yeah.
even though they knew that they were like, whatever they were going to do was going to cost them their life, they still
Yeah.
did it anyways, because
Yeah.
that was greater than their existence.
Yeah, and they would hope we would see it that way too. Like, well, I did this so I could set the stage for you to do the next thing. So, yeah,
But
stop
always do it in
seeing what I
humility.
did.
Be humble.
Yeah.
Don't go around banging your chest. Be humble,
Is
because
is that bad though?
other people will bang the drum for you.
I see.
You get to dance,
I see. Okay.
because other people will see who you are. That's just the way things are. We're sitting here right now. I can see that we have a fireplace, outdoor fireplace here, where you burn wood to keep people warm in this cold in the wintertime outside here. I can see that there's a river behind you, and trees, and this picnic table.
Mm-hmm.
So other people are going to always see and recognize the virtue in Blada. You don't have to say, "I'm virtuous."
So like this person, we're sitting on a table here where some artists
Which is beautiful.
harvest a lot of a bunch of flowers, and then they make this beautiful looking piece of art, and we just showed up here and we saw it and we're sitting next to it, and I tell you what, when I pull up here, I saw that, it changed my mind. So that person I could be considered as a hero. It changed somebody's life. It made me happier than I
Yes,
when I
yes.
woke up this morning.
It was. We walked up to it and we were like, should we sit there? And I'm like,
Yeah, it was
yes,
so
let's do it,
beautiful.
because it was almost like the table was set for us to sit here.
Yeah,
You know,
it's so natural. So yeah, that's some hero stuff. Thank you. Whoever did that, it didn't leave any business card or anything.
yeah, yeah. Their
So
humility. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a humble artist. Yeah,
that's right.
yeah,
And that makes him even more a hero because he didn't
yeah.
do it.
He
Even
didn't
do
do
it
it.
for
He
that.
didn't do it for personal recognition,
Yeah,
and yet, he or she is being recognized
he or she. Yeah, it's being recognized.
through their work of art. And
Yeah,
this is what I'm saying.
and for he or her, it doesn't matter if um, if it changed somebody's life or what. It's she or he just does what it does, and here it is. Um,
Your greatness in this world will speak for itself.
will
I
speak for itself.
guarantee you, especially the world we're living in now, where every information is being sent out at this. As soon as you press your fingers, it's
Yeah,
it's on the other side of the earth.
yeah,
Oh, look what Blada just texted me from North Carolina, and I'm in, let's say, Africa.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Wow, he says he's happy. You know what I mean? Instantly. So we're all. It's like where this information grid can give us the greatest joy or the deepest sadness. You know what I mean? Based on what information we deliver to each other through
Yeah,
through the internet.
yeah, yeah,
You know.
yeah. Man, I can't tell you, man. Every time I get so much value in speaking with you, and I tell you something though. It's not necessarily word for word everything you say, but it just stimulate and as force just force me anyways. Force somebody who's gonna um, listen to this is gonna be like forcing you to think to the next level because you can think of everything that you just think every day,
Yes.
but talking to someone, spark those
Insight.
insight
Yep.
and just think of something else and something new and um, and you know having opportunity to word it out to make it real, I should say. um, you think it and then you talk it out and it becomes real. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
for always willing to speak with me.
Yes, absolutely.
um,
Anytime. I mean, this is, to me, this is like an ongoing dialogue. It doesn't end when you and I go separate ways.
yeah,
It's just because it's in the air, you know what I mean? And it's like we're sending out this, this good vibe of information so that people can have their own perspective, and as they look at it and see it for themselves, they can receive it or they can reject it. It's not up to me, or you. They're going to do whatever they're going to do with it. You know, my perspective is that I want to bring people together. You know what I mean? I want people to literally see that the idea of separation is an illusion. You know, the idea of race is an illusion. Those are things we constructed. There's only one race, and it's a human race. We're one family. We're breathing from the same lung called the earth, called the biosphere. So all these things are telling us. I mean, nature itself, the spirit, and the nature in which it took form, as you and I, is telling us that we are our brothers. You know what I mean? There's no this idea that we have to not cooperate with each other, to cut each other off, to censor each other is the wrong way to go. Because what does that mean about love? If I cut you off, how is that loving? How is that kindness? How is that compassion? How is that how does that benefit developing a reflection, which is relationship? It's very important. Legislation, again, is a lazy man's way out. It's a false hero. It doesn't produce what it said is going to produce. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the same problems we still have from 60 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. You know what I mean? We're still dealing with the same problems because we're still dealing with the same programmers, programming us to divide each other based on political sides or religion or tribal or whatever it is. I'm not a tribalist.
Yeah.
You know
Okay.
what I mean?
Yeah.
For me, I'm always looking at my other self, the continuation of myself through you. Because when you answer me, I'm hearing myself through you.
Yeah.
I've never met a stranger in my life. I've met people who think strange things, but I've never met a stranger. I've always met myself and other.
Okay.
And I think that if we can get to that point where we can get past so much of this repeating of the past, which is what? Another problem that we have. We have a major problem in rehashing history and rewriting history and restudying history and saying, well, you did this to me 50 years ago. Well, that was 50 years ago. We're two different people now. We're a whole different generation of human beings. I didn't do that to you. So why are we learning that? You know what I mean? I must learn who you are now. Blah.
But you still don't want to forget what happened, though.
I want to forget.
You want to forget?
I want to be completely present, and I want to be completely new. You cannot mix the new with the old. You can't mix water and oil. I could tell you could take, and you could put a oil and water together and mix it for 1,000 years. When you stop mixing it and you look, what are you going to find? Water and oil, separate. Always separate. You can't mix it.
So you're saying, is it forgive or forget?
Both.
Both.
Forgive
Okay.
and forget. Because if I tell you, I'm glad you asked that question.
Yeah.
If I tell you that I forgive you, and the next time I see you, I bring it up, did I forgive you? No.
Okay, that's wow. That's for the next. Let's talk more about that next time. Okay.
Forgiveness.
Because forgive or forget. That's gonna be our next
Okay.
topic. And say one last thing to the audience, and then we'll let X go for today. And remember, the next topic with me and X here, it will be forgive or forget, or both.
Yeah.
And so that's exciting. And so X, let's say goodbye.
Well, it's for me. It doesn't change. I'm looking at myself in other, and I might not always like what I see in other, but I still see myself in it because I've made the same mistake that I see in other people. So I can't condemn other people for making the same mistake that I made. I can only forgive them and try to develop an understanding of self. People say people say that knowledge is power. I say no. Self-knowledge is power. I add the word self to it. It's not knowledge is power. It's self-knowledge is power. You can't exclude yourself from that equation. You must, because the person who benefits from the knowledge is who? Self. So self-knowledge is power.
What if you put the self on the other side of the equation? Knowledge is self-power.
There you go.
Because you have to be there.
Yeah,
you don't care where in
you
the.
you can you can do it.
I got you.
That's perfectly fine, man.
Yeah.
That's just
Put yourself in the equation, because there is nothing without self. Self is you, self is I, and self is that bubble that we are all in, and we're gonna be in until who knows when. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Peace.